Welcome to Peoria Now. I'm Bo Larson. Did you know that 98% of Peoria residents would recommend living in Peoria to someone who asks? Or that 94% of the residents say they feel safe in their neighborhoods, and 88% of residents felt the city's recreation centers and facilities are excellent or good. These numbers are from our recently completed citizen survey. The city conducts this survey every 3 or 4 years so we can learn more about what services are important to you and what we can do as a city to improve those services. The City of Peoria uses the National Citizen Survey conducted by the National Research Center to conduct the statistically valid survey. 1,200 residents were randomly selected representing all of Peoria equally. Residents who chose to respond to the survey then provided the results to the National Citizen Survey, which then tabulated the answers. The results are also measured against comparable sized cities from around the country. These are called benchmark measurements. This allows Peoria to compare how we measure up with other cities our size and with similar qualities. So you know, Peoria had some of the top scores in the nation as compared to the benchmark cities. We are very proud of these results, and you should be as well. During an April 2013 City Council session, a representative from the National Research Center presented the results and explained what all the numbers meant to the City Council.
As Bo mentioned, we just recently conducted the National Citizen Survey for Peoria. This is the second time we've conducted the NCS for Peoria. The last time was in 2009. And the National Citizen Survey is designed to be an omnibus citizen survey that asks a wide variety of questions about quality of life and service delivery and local government. And a lot of the survey instrument itself is standardized, and that level of standardization of the survey tool allows us to provide benchmark comparisons, as Bo touched upon. So not only throughout this presentation will we be comparing the 2013 results to Peoria's 2009 results, but we'll also be showing you the comparisons to our benchmarking database. And as already touched upon, it is a valid scientific survey. We randomly selected 1,200 households that fall within city limits. We had a 25% response rate. It was a multi-contact mailed survey. That wasn't me. With the response rate we received, we have a margin of error of plus or minus 6 percentage points around the survey results for 2013. And this type of survey is representative of your whole community. Not just the voices that you may be used to hearing from, the citizens that may be more vocal about concerns or with their praise. In fact, only 14% of the survey respondents said that they had attended a public meeting in the last 12 months. This map shows the distribution of the surveys that were mailed to the randomly selected households. You can see that there's a split here between north of Bell Road and south of Bell Road. And we do have some results broken out that way as well, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but just wanted to show you the sample distribution. It's about equal in the north and the south, and it should overall roughly mirror the housing density of the city. Now, as we get into some community ratings, let me orient you to what you're seeing here on this slide. The percents you see there, that 95%, is the combination of percent excellent and good. Most of these questions on the survey were asked on a scale of excellent, good, fair, or poor. So that 95% there next to neighborhood as a place to live means that 95% of the survey respondents felt that their neighborhood as a place to live is excellent or good. And then the smaller arrows next to the percentages indicate if a rating increased, remained the same, or decreased from 2009 to 2013. And when we're looking at differences in ratings from 2009 to 2013, the margin of error does increase a little bit for that comparison. So that margin of error is 8 percentage points. So for a difference to be considered real or statistically significant, it needs to be 9 percentage points or more when comparing the 2009 data to 2013. So for instance, neighborhood as a place to live increased, and that rating in 2009 was 80%. So that went up 15 percentage points. Quality of life in Peoria also increased. That was 83% in 2009, and now it's 93%. And lastly, those larger arrows on the slide are the references to our benchmarking database. And for Peoria, there are two different benchmarks we created. One is to all jurisdictions in our database, and we often refer to that as the national benchmark. There are about 550 different jurisdictions in our national benchmarking database. They're from all over the country, and they're of all different sizes. And then the custom benchmark that Peoria selected was to be compared to jurisdictions of similar size. And that size range was those with populations between 100,000 and 200,000. So when we're talking about the custom benchmark, it's a comparison to communities of similar size. As you can see by all of these up arrows, Peoria was above the benchmark comparison, so doing better than most jurisdictions in our database for both the national and custom benchmark. And in the benchmark report that you have, we go into more detail about the benchmarks and show you ratings and rankings. And I did want to mention that neighborhoods as a place to live was ranked number 1 out of the 26 other communities between 100 and 200,000 population size. So Peoria did the best for that out of all of the other jurisdictions of similar size. So that's impressive and worth noting, certainly. We asked residents if they would recommend living in Peoria to someone who asks, and 98% said they were likely to do that. That rating is, of course, extremely high, and that's remained stable over time, as has the rating of those who said that they would remain in Peoria for the next 5 years, at 89% saying they were likely to do so, and that's above both benchmarks. Looking at some questions having to do with transportation. You'll see a lot of up arrows on this slide. You'll see that everything is above both benchmark comparisons.
We have a question.
Sure.
Yeah, that measure of remain in Peoria, that's irregardless of satisfaction. They may be moving for a number of different reasons, just a straight question.
That's true.
So it can be a measure of what percentage may be leaving. Mm-hmm. Okay. Not necessarily because they're happy or unhappy.
Correct. It could be something beyond their control, job change or something along those lines, absolutely.
Good. Thank you.
We typically see, we work with a number of college towns, and that rating tends to be lower.
It's a behavioral measure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sure. And so back to, and if anybody has questions throughout, please feel free to stop me. I'm happy to answer questions as we go. Looking at these transportation services here, you can see that everything with the exception of ease of bus travel is above both the national and custom benchmark and has increased since 2009. And I do want to mention that this isn't typical. We don't expect to see a lot of change in ratings over time. For the most part, what we typically see is a lot of stability, and maybe a couple of areas go up and some go down. If there's been large capital improvements, it could make sense for a whole slate of transportation ratings to increase. But really, for Peoria, kind of across the board, you'll be seeing a lot of these up arrows, and it's not typical. It made us go back and triple check and quadruple check the data and make sure everything was correct. It is. So there's a lot of good news here, and it's not a typical thing. So it's fun for me to be able to bring that to you. And as you can see, the ease of bus travel at the bottom of that list has remained stable and is below the benchmarks at 29%, but the rest, as I mentioned, all increasing and above the benchmark. Services related to transportation, again, almost all of these have increased since 2009, and those that increased are all rated as excellent or good by a majority of the respondents, and they're above the national and custom benchmark comparison. Bus or transit services has remained stable and is below the benchmark comparisons. A couple of these ratings were extremely high when looking at the rankings also. Sidewalk maintenance and street cleaning were both ranked number 2 when looking at jurisdictions of similar size, so there was only one jurisdiction that got higher ratings than Peoria for either of those services. When looking at land use and development, you'll see the overall appearance of Peoria was rated as excellent or good by about 8 in 10 respondents. That is above both of the benchmarks again and increased. In 2009, that rating was 65%, so that went up 16 percentage points. And the quality of new development in Peoria was rated as excellent or good by about 3/4 of respondents. That's remained stable over time and is also above.
Councilmember Edwards. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Can you go back to the previous slide with the, there you go. Is there a way, Bo, to put what the national average is and what our percentage rate climbed so that we know that it went up 5%, 2% versus just knowing that it went up?
Yes, I can I'll share with you our previous survey, and we have those online as well, all the surveys we've done over the course of the years.
I just
So,
wanted to see if they put it on here.
yeah.
So,
Well, we can adjust this and resend it to you so you can share it.
thank you.
Sure.
We have another question. Councilmember Ames.
Yeah, as long as we're on traffic signal timing, maybe you're going to bring it up later. I noticed when I read the report, it's really one of the drivers of being satisfied with Peoria, right? When you did your regression analysis? And that's
I have to take a
gone
look
up?
at your key drivers. It did show up as a key driver, you're correct.
It's
Yes.
a key driver,
And
traffic
we-
signal timing. And we're at 61, so we've gone up, but there's room to grow, and that's an important area to grow if it's one of the aspects which really drives liking Peoria.
Yeah, that can definitely have an impact of how people feel about getting around town and how long it takes them to get places. And it is something that's above the benchmark comparisons and is increasing. So I think you're correct to think that it's definitely shown to be important to
Right.
residents.
And we have more room to increase.
But typically, it is something that's rated lower than a lot of other items on the survey, which is why you see a 61% being above the benchmark comparison. So that helps give it a little context. But certainly, there's room. Some of the services where you're already getting a 98% excellent or good, there's not as much room.
No.
Yeah, but I think an observation, and maybe it's a good time for me to make this with respect to the whole survey. As the council knows, we have taken the results from the past survey really to heart, and we have focused attention and energy on areas that were lower, particularly in the transportation arena, because that was a significant discussion of the council and the staff the last time we did the survey. And so we have focused on trying to create an improvement in the vehicular transportation arena in the city. We've had less ability to impact the public transit, the bus service, and I think the fact that that measure stayed constant is a reflection of the fact that we have not been able, because of the nature of how bus service is delivered here, to be able to really change that dynamic very much. But we have been able to improve vehicular transportation through light timing, as was mentioned, but also, of course, the capital projects and the significant part of our capital improvement program that has been geared toward intersection improvement and roadway expansion and vehicular transportation improvements. And what we will do, again, with this survey, even though happily it's showing an uptick in most, if not all, the categories, we want to use this information to continue to make improvements. So we will be integrating this into, to your point, Councilmember Ames, to continue to make improvements in the signal timing and other facets of our transportation program.
Yeah, we'll have everyone so happy and crazy about Peoria if we can do more.
Looking at some questions that having to do with economic sustainability, you can see that, again, all of these items are above the benchmark comparisons. Peoria as a place to work tops the list with 79% saying excellent or good. That rating has increased from 2009. That rating in 2009 was 61% excellent or good, so that jumped up 18 percentage points. You'll see employment opportunities at the bottom of the list with less than 50% saying excellent or good. That's not uncommon or unique to Peoria to see this item when looking at this list of these four services to be at the lowest. The bar's pretty low given recent years, and that's why that's still above both the national and custom benchmark comparison. But that's increased from 26% in 2009 in Peoria all the way up to 45%. So there has been a lot of improvement already in that rating. We asked people if they felt, how safe they felt. And these questions were asked on a scale of very safe to very unsafe. And the percents you see here are those that said very or somewhat safe. You can see that 94% feel somewhat or very safe in their neighborhoods during the day, and then in their neighborhoods after dark, that drops to 83%. That's not uncommon or unique to Peoria to see that ratings of safety during the day are higher than ratings of safety at night. Ratings of safety downtown were lower, as you can see. That's also not uncommon, although there is a fairly large disparity here between safety downtown during the day, with 78% feeling safe, to only 41% saying they feel safe downtown after dark. And that rating has remained stable over time. In fact, all of the ratings on this slide have remained stable over time, with the exception of ratings of safety in neighborhoods after dark. That one increased from 2009. The rest have remained stable, and that rating for safety after dark downtown is below the national benchmark comparison, but similar when compared to communities of similar size, and the same thing for safety ratings during the day.
I have a question about the downtown. What were the reasons for that number being at 41%?
Well, that's a great question. The survey does a really good job of telling us what, but not why. So that could potentially be an area to dig deeper in, to perhaps engage some citizens in small groups or focus groups of some sort to find out, is it that there's not enough police visibility, or should there be more street lighting, or were there any incidents in the news recently of crimes downtown? All of those things could potentially have an impact, but the survey just simply asks people if they feel safe or not, and that's what they were saying. At
Your
this time.
experience, why do you think there's such a dramatic difference from night and day on the percentage?
It's not uncommon to see a difference between night and day, but I do think that dramatic difference for
because
downtown
if you look at neighborhoods, it's only an 11% difference, and for downtown, it's close to 40%.
I think that is something, a potential area of opportunity for Peoria to dig into, or maybe, you all are the experts on Peoria, and maybe you have hypotheses about it, or you've gotten feedback from some residents about it, or.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ames.
Yeah, do we have any open-ended questions on the survey?
No, you did not ask an open-ended question this year.
But we could add one or two, right? This
Yes.
could be an area, why do you say that? Right?
Definitely.
In the future survey.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is an area, obviously, Vice Mayor, that we noticed right away, too, in looking at this, because it was low last time and stayed there. And we do have very good police patrols in the area, as you know. But I think one of the things that and this is something we will report more on, but one of the things that tends to happen in a perception of safety is when there's a lot of vacant storefronts and buildings. And as you know, in our discussions of economic development, that is something that has been a subject of discussion about trying to improve investment in that part of the community, because we do have a lot of larger vacant big box stores and other properties. And so there's just not a lot of human activity in some of those areas, and I think that's a contributing factor.
That certainly makes sense.
Okay. Councilmember Ames.
Yeah, and another factor would be gangs hanging around, but I haven't noticed that at night. Have you? Has anyone?
We don't, no.
Because I know that's a big thing, if there are a lot of gangs running around, right? And
I don't think that would make people feel
No.
safe.
no, okay.
That's not
We
an
don't seem
issue.
to have.
No, no, that really isn't an issue there, no.
Proceed.
And then just looking at the rest of the slide here, you can see that a majority of residents said that they feel safe from violent crimes, about 8 in 10, from environmental hazards, and 65% saying they feel safe from property crimes in Peoria. When looking at services related to safety, we have some extremely high ratings here. Fire services rated at 98%, excellent or good. That's increased since 2009. That rating in 2009 was 89%. Ambulance or emergency medical services at 97%, also an increase. That increased from 88%. Police services has remained stable. It's a very strong rating, again, at 90%, excellent or good. Almost all of these are above the benchmark comparisons. You'll see that emergency preparedness at the bottom of the list with 58% saying excellent or good. That's remained stable over time. That's similar to both benchmarks. This was another area where Peoria had some extremely high rankings in terms of the benchmarks. Peoria was, when compared to populations between 100 and 200,000, Peoria ranked number 1 for fire services, number 2 for ambulance and EMS, number 2 for police services, and number 2 for fire prevention and education, and also crime prevention. Looking at some issues having to do with environmental sustainability, again, more of those green arrows saying that ratings have increased. Ratings increased for cleanliness of Peoria, quality of overall natural environment, and preservation of natural areas. Those are all above the custom benchmark, and a couple are similar to the national benchmark. 90% of residents said that they had recycled from their homes at least once in the last 12 months, and that rate of recycling has remained stable over time, and it's a higher rate than we tend to see in comparison communities. Looking at some utility services, you'll see that, again, these ratings are very strong. This slide doesn't show you the benchmark comparison for these items, but they're all above both benchmarks with the exception of drinking water, which was lower than the national benchmark and similar to populations of similar size. However, that rating has increased substantially since 2009. You can see that 2009 is the bottom bar chart there, the bottom bar in the chart, and so that's increased from 48% to 62%. These ratings have all remained stable or improved. Services, sure.
What was the actual question on quality of water? Was it quality?
It's just listed as drinking water.
Oh, just an item there.
Exactly.
Would you rate the quality of, was the
On a
lead-in?
scale of excellent, good, fair, or poor.
Okay, so it's quality, though.
Councilmember Carlin?
In your slide, a couple slides ago, you said that recycling was 90% of our citizens recycled, and yet on page 55 it says 72% is the highest.
It's a combination of, it's asked on a frequency of use scale. So this is everybody that had done it at least once.
Okay. At least once? Everybody that had done it at least once in the last 12 months?
Correct.
Okay. So the page 55 then, where it asks this question here, well, it says in the last 12 months.
So you'll see that first column there on page 55, 10% said never. So everybody else said at least some. So
Oh, okay, so you just added the rest together. huh?
correct.
Okay.
But you're right that 72% is the highest percentage there, and those were people that said they had recycled more than 26 times. So at least once every couple of weeks. So a more frequent and regular cycle.
All right, so really when we're talking about the frequency of people recycling, what is the actual number we should use? 90% is the combination of, people above 26 and people once. So how can we really get an idea about how much we're recycling per household through this survey?
Well, it does say that 72% have done it more than 26 times. So that sounds like a pretty
so
frequent basis.
so
For the purpose of creating a benchmark comparison for this rating, that's why we combine everything except for never. So when combining it that way, we can give you the average rating and see that you're above those benchmark comparisons. But still, the largest category is those that could select the highest amount of frequency. So I think that's a good sign.
So if you took our 72%, which is a little closer to actual, I guess, how are we then compared to benchmark?
It hasn't been calculated that way, so we could potentially do some extra analysis and see if we could pull it out that way, but
Okay.
that wouldn't be something I have offhand, unfortunately.
All right, thanks.
Let's see, looking at Parks and Recreation, got a little ahead of myself in my own notes here. Recreation centers or facilities, city parks, and recreation programs or classes were all rated as excellent or good by 80% or more of the respondents. It's above, again, above both benchmarks. And the ratings for recreation centers or facilities improved. In 2009, that rating was 78%, so that improved 10 percentage points. Ratings for city parks and recreation programs or classes have remained stable, and ratings for recreation opportunities in Peoria have also remained stable at 70% excellent or good, and that is above both the national and custom benchmark comparison. And the rec centers or facilities rating ranked number 2 among communities of similar size. Public library services were rated as excellent or good by more than 90% of respondents. That's increased from 84% in 2009. Opportunities to attend cultural activities increased from 45% in 2009 to 58% in 2013. That's similar to both benchmarks. We also asked about library usage, and 57% of the respondents said they had used Peoria Public Library at least once in the last 12 months, and that was a lower rate of frequency than we tend to see in other communities. Peoria as a place to raise children was rated as excellent or good by about 9 in 10 respondents, and that's increased from 79% in 2009 to 90% in 2013. Peoria as a place to retire was rated at 66% excellent or good in 2009, and that came all the way up to 85% excellent or good in 2013. Openness and acceptance of the community toward people of diverse backgrounds has remained stable over time at 73% excellent or good. And the sense of community in Peoria has increased. That rating was 54% in 2009, and now it's 66% in 2013. The availability of affordable quality childcare is at the bottom of the list. Here, it is still above both benchmarks, even though it's a little bit less than 50% saying excellent or good. It's a rating that doesn't tend to be very high in most communities we survey. Looking at services to some population subgroups, you can see that these are all above the national and custom benchmarks. Services to seniors and services to low-income people have remained stable over time. However, services to youth has decreased. This is the only service item we asked on the survey that showed a decrease over time. That rating in 2009 was 76% excellent or good. When asking about opportunities to volunteer and opportunities to participate in community matters, a majority rated both as excellent or good, and those ratings remain stable over time. We also asked if people had volunteered at least once on that same frequency scale in the last 12 months, and only 26% said that they had volunteered their time to some group or activity in Peoria in the last 12 months. And that rate of volunteerism has remained stable over time and is a lower rate than we typically see in comparison communities. When asking about some questions that have to do with the local government, you see that the overall direction that the city is taking has increased over time. That rating was 62% in 2009, and now it's 72% saying excellent or good in 2013. That's above both of the benchmark comparisons. In fact, all of these items are above both benchmark comparisons, with the exception of the overall image or reputation of Peoria, which is similar to our national benchmarking database, so that's about the same as we see in most other communities, but it is above the rating for communities of similar size. We asked survey respondents if they had had contact with a City of Peoria employee at least once in the last 12 months, either by phone, email, or in person. And those that said that they had had contact with an employee, which was 43% of the survey respondents, we then asked them to rate that contact. And you can see that these ratings have remained stable over time. 86% saying the knowledge was excellent or good, 85% for their overall impression of the city employee, 84% for courtesy, and 76% said responsiveness was excellent or good. I did want to point out that all of these ratings were extremely high when looking, especially when looking at cities between 100 and 200,000 in population. The rating for knowledge ranked number 1, and overall impression, courtesy, and responsiveness were all ranked number 2. As Councilmember Ames touched on before, or a little bit earlier, we did what's called a key driver analysis. It's something that we've borrowed from the private sector, and it helps us perhaps get a sense of importance, of implied importance, or derived importance, without asking people, what is the most important thing the city does for you, or what is the most important service the city provides. What we're able to do is take a look at the services from the survey. So all of the services you see here in this chart, we did a regression analysis where we compared the way people rated each one of these to the way they rated the overall quality of services being provided by the city, and we looked to see where the strongest correlations or relationships were with the way people rated a specific service and the way they felt about the city overall. And those items that have the keys next to them were those that were found to have a statistically significant relationship with the way people feel about the overall job the city is doing. And in 2013, those items were traffic signal timing, fire services, and city parks. The other dimension here shown on this chart is relationship to the national benchmark. As you can see, this chart's almost entirely green, which means everything that's green is above the benchmark comparison. The two items that are yellow were similar to the benchmark comparison, and there's no red except for in the legend of the chart because there weren't any services from this analysis that were below the benchmark comparison, which is certainly not common. And all of these upward arrows are areas where there's been statistically significant improvement, which to see something this green with this many arrows is not typical, and it's nice to see.
You can learn more about the Citizen Survey and read the results for yourself on the city's website, PeoriaAZ.gov. Thank you for watching Peoria Now. You can keep up with all the news and events happening in Peoria online on the city's website or follow us on Facebook or Twitter. You can also receive a weekly electronic newsletter. Go to PeoriaAZ.gov/eNews. And as always, check your monthly utility bills for the Peoria Now insert. Again, thanks for watching Peoria Now.